welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Hello, and welcome back to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I am so excited for this episode because it is my first interview, and I'm here with my friend Hailey. And the situation is we're currently sitting on the floor using one mic because I couldn't figure out the technology to use my second mic. So we're going to be passing the mic back and forth, but it's going to be great. And I'm very excited. So I wanted to have Hailey just introduce herself a bit and share any foundational pieces that would be helpful before we start the interview.
Hi, I'm Hailey. I recently met Rachel through our TBM group that we are both part of, To Be Magnetic. Shout out to you. Where can I start? I moved to Asheville, North Carolina just over a year ago. The mountains were really calling me, which we can circle back to that in my human design. That is my ideal environment. I'm really happy to be here, both in this space with Rachel here today and also in Asheville, North Carolina, surrounded by these beautiful mountains. I am a trauma-informed yoga teacher and breathwork teacher. I got my 200-hour certification last year through Soul Work, and I'm currently working towards my 300-hour certification right now, so I will be a 500-hour registered yoga teacher by the end of this year. I'm pretty excited about that. And one thing that I just wanted to talk about initially, I guess, is what intuition means to me. Obviously, this is called the Intuitively Wild podcast, and intuition to me is really just about feeling into the feelings in your body and tuning out your mind. So that's where I'm at. I'm really trying to follow my intuition by listening to my body. Back to you, Rachel.
I love that so much, especially because for those who are interested or who know about human design, Hailey is a 3/5 sacral generator. So for her intuition truly is all about feeling into her body and what that gut yes or no is. And it connects so intricately with the yoga work you're doing in this embodiment practice and the trauma-informed yoga, because being in our bodies and really noticing what it's telling us and paying attention to it, that's the work, And side note, Hailey's also a Sagittarius sun, a Leo moon, and a Sag rising. So if that helps anyone, it always helps me understand people deeper. But I'm curious what got you into yoga in the first place, how that initial spark was formed, and what brought you on that path.
That is a perfect question that ties right back into what I was saying about following my intuition through feeling the sensations in my body. So I would say about 2 years ago, I came across a Kundalini yoga book at Goodwill. I picked it up, I brought it home, I read it cover to cover, and the feelings that I had in my body were just like electric, magnetic, amazing, like full body kind of chills. And maybe you can resonate with this if you ever are listening to like a really good song and it just like hits you and you get those full body chills. I had that feeling when I was just like learning about yoga. So I immediately told my boyfriend I am going to do a yoga teacher training at some point in my lifetime. But I specifically said it will not be soon. It will be far away from now. And then lo and behold, I was just, scrolling through Facebook one day and came across an ad for Soulworks 200-hour trauma-informed yoga teacher training. And at that time, I didn't really have any kind of clue what trauma-informed meant or how that would be like such an integral piece to my own healing. But here I am, and I feel like it was just so meant to be. And I'm really excited to just keep learning and keep passing all of my wisdom along to everybody else in my life and everyone that I will meet in the future.
I feel like many people I talk to who are in the spiritual space or who make that their work have this moment in their life where they connect deeply with a book or a class or a teacher and just have that full body yes, or the chills, or just some sort of acknowledgement in their body that this is important to them, and that kind of leads them on their path. I know I definitely had that when it comes to yoga as well. And I think it speaks to how much you have strengthened your intuition and how much you have been listening to it, and the fact that we don't choose the timing. We just follow what comes in our path. That's the work. That is what we need to do, is to just let the universe show us what is next for us without trying to figure it out logically. I guess what comes to mind right now is what you thought your path would look like if you had an idea of it before you followed this yoga journey.
Oh my. What I thought my path would look like is, I would say, the same as what I was programmed growing up to think that my path should look like. And that is, there's obviously a gap between what I thought it would look like and what it should look like and where I am right now. And I think just the more that I put out of my mind what I should do according to, what your parents, what they want for you, all through high school, I had plans of going to like a 4-year college and getting some kind of degree in something, and then, joining the corporate life of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, weekends off. I imagined that I would, have like awesome health insurance and benefits through my job, and life would just be great. And I, through my journey, I have had a small taste of working in a corporate kind of job, and I hated it. It made me literally not want to be alive. And that is also what, pushed me towards this yogic path, because I just knew there's like something more for me, and I didn't want to live the life that I should live and that people around me maybe wanted me to live. So yeah, my life is definitely not at all what I imagined it to look like, but in the best way.
Yeah. Well, those who know me know that that's very similar to my story, parts of it, at least, not following what I thought I should be doing, and my life definitely looking different than a lot of people in my life, a lot of other people. But I'm so passionate about the fact that I think if our lives were to look similar to everyone else's, it wouldn't be our path. We wouldn't be following our intuition fully, because everyone's path is meant to look different. That's the whole point of life, is to find what your path is. Was there a moment when you really felt something needs to shift in my life, or was it more a gradual process?
Oh yes, there was a moment for sure. I would say the first time that I felt that something needs to shift is I was in a job where, excuse my emotions, I'm very like deep in my luteal phase right now. So so I was just really deep into a job where the people above me, there was like some financial mishandlings happening intentionally, and I feel activated talking about it right now, because that is just so far from what I wanted to be involved with. And I just knew, like, having the anxiety of knowing that I am like involved in literally people committing crimes, I knew I had to leave. I just, like, my heart was just pounding out of my chest on a daily basis. And I knew I had to go. So I left. And then, I took some time and I moved out of that, 40 to 60 hour work week that I was in, and took some time for myself. I moved into, like, I was just a cleaning lady for a while, which was quite a shift for me because I went from being an executive director of a nonprofit to titleless and just a cleaning lady. So that was like a whole shift for me in itself. And then I found myself back in more of a corporate kind of situation where I was working under an accountant, a CPA, and again, like, the same feeling returned to me after a few months of working there, of just like, I had so much stress and anxiety related to just, work. Like, there was no financial mishandlings in this job. However, the same feeling was back of like, this needs to change. I just feel terrible being in my own body, and that's no way to live, truly.
The courage it takes to speak up in that situation when everyone around you is acting like it's okay and it's normal. I can only imagine how hard that must have been for you. And also to let go of this identity that you had created for yourself of being in this position and being a leader in that community. I know we've talked about how you had really stepped up at that job and had a lot of responsibility, and to let that all go and really stay in your integrity it's really hard, and not a lot of people are able to do that. And I think taking that time afterwards to reground and reassess is so important. And then finding yourself back in this job that's activating again. And I think that speaks to the fact that it is normalized in our society for work to be stressful and really activating and dysregulating. And it's strange for people to live in a world where work isn't like that. And I'm curious if now in your life you ever find yourself looking for that activation, if it feels weird when you're more restful now.
That is a great question, and so much yes. With my trauma-informed education comes a lot of knowledge about the nervous system. And what I've learned is that I had been, and still am for the most part, living in a sympathetic state, which, the more common term of that is fight or flight. So when you go from being in a constant state of fight or flight, go, go, go all the time, it can feel just extremely off, if you will, to be in a calm, relaxed state where you don't have to go, 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 and everything can be relaxed. And, what does that look like when you're not used to it? I mean, it looks like me trying to pick fights with my boyfriend out of nowhere because I'm used to the chaos. It's me watching some crazy movies and reality TV to like soothe that part of me that craves the chaos. So it's a work in progress, that is for sure. But I guess just to kind of tie that into following your intuition, I mean, when you're in a dysregulated state, and, back to what I had said about, for me at least, I feel my intuition comes from the messages from my body. And when you're in a dysregulated state, those messages from your body are not always going to seem correct in the moment. I really struggled with it for a long time, feeling like there's something wrong in my body. And then with that trauma-informed education came the realization that no, there's nothing actually wrong in my body other than the fact that my nervous system is just so dysregulated that I'm constantly feeling like something is wrong. So that has taken just a lot of time to learn and relearn and integrate into my life.
I definitely had a very similar experience throughout my recovery, my healing, and still often do struggle with that. I think that it's why a lot of the world can't connect to their intuition, because it's so clouded by this dysregulation and the chaos that is either around them or that they're causing. And we also confuse our fear and our trauma with our intuition, and we listen to that over our intuition. Are there any daily practices that you use to come back to yourself and to regulate your nervous system?
Yes, most definitely. So I would say, to begin with, I really try to prioritize, just in general, self-care to my physical body. So what does that look like for me? It's different every day. I like to have some water element involved because, as you know, I'm a pretty fiery person. So I really feel a sense of calm from water. I take a lot of baths. I take very long showers. I like to just go sit by rivers and creeks, put my feet in. I have a practice of doing breath work every day, which has been super huge. And that is honestly, it's one of the, prior to me picking up that yoga book a couple years ago, I had listened to Dr. Andrew Weil, if you are familiar, and he came up with the 4-7-8 breathing technique, if you're familiar with that at all. And so basically, that was my first breathwork practice, which really brought me into like, okay, the feeling I get from doing breathwork is so powerful. Like, I have to keep doing this. So yeah, and through my yoga teacher training, I've learned all kinds of different breathwork practices. But I would say just really feeling into my body every day and just kind of like determining, what do I need? Do I need like a more activating practice? Do I need something more restful? And like I said, from living in a constant state of sympathetic nervous system overdrive, I really fall on my calming breathwork practices primarily. So lots of breath work, lots of tending to my physical body. I also, not daily, but I try to go weekly to acupuncture. I've also found that to be very helpful in regulating my nervous system, as well as, some of my health issues that I have. So yes. Also, I would like to mention journaling. Journaling is huge. And recently I've kind of taken a bit of a step back from journaling for no particular reason. But as I was journaling this morning, I was just writing about how I feel like I'm missing talking to like a really good friend. And that friend is myself. So I need to get back into my journaling practice.
As you know, I am so passionate about journaling, and I think it's because that's how I can bring out my own voice and talk to myself in a really tangible way. And I love how you said you were missing a friend, and that friend was yourself, and you're reconnecting through journaling. That makes me really happy. Another thing that popped into my head as you were talking is how personalized your daily practices are for you, because you have that awareness around your needs. And that just emphasizes how everyone is so different and needs different things. And it comes back to listening to our intuition and really being in our body and knowing ourselves. When you were first starting yoga and didn't have that connection to yourself in the same way, how did you form that relationship to really get to know what you need personally?
I spent a lot of time in nature, so much time in nature. And I spent so much time in nature, just me and all the little critters and the trees and the water, and came to the conclusion that I am nature. And I really look toward the cycles of nature as, if you listen to Rachel's last podcast, she talks about it perfectly. But, with different seasons comes different needs for people, for animals, for everyone. The earth is going through its own cycles, and as nature takes itself through cycles, so do you. And honoring those cycles and those times of years where, it's winter, time to slow down, and okay, spring, time to plant some seeds of what's next for you, and so on. So really just spending time in nature just opened my mind a lot. And spending time with myself, I think, was huge too, especially having the realization that I have some pretty codependent relationships and tendencies in my life, taking back that power and just spending time with myself was just so empowering. And I think that really kind of helped forge my path toward yoga, union with yourself.
Yes, obviously I co-sign everything you just said. And we've the two of us have talked a lot about your transition from codependency and working through that struggle. And I know a lot of people in my life who struggle with the same thing. And I know it's still something that you're actively working on, but do you have any insights or learnings that you've gathered throughout your journey that you think would be helpful to share?
I would say at this point in my journey, my best advice is there are a lot of resources out there that you can learn about codependency. There's tons of little quizzes you can take on the internet to see if you're a codependent person. But I have a feeling that if you just take some time to read about codependency, if you don't know what it is, you will immediately see the patterns, maybe in your own life or in people you're close with, where you're like, wow, that is what that is. Okay. Because for so long in my life, I've seen these patterns and I've not really had like a name to put to them or what it was. You know, it was just my life, my family, my relationships, and that is just how it is. But the more that I learn and understand codependency, the more freedom and space I can have away from it, and build new patterns and really just like work on boundaries and understanding what boundaries really are, because people talk about boundaries all the time, but it's different than actually like setting a boundary in your own life. And boundaries look different for everybody at different points in your life. So my advice is really to lean on some resources. There's also some codependent anonymous groups I have not, had the gumption to dip my toes into yet, but I feel that could be helpful to my own process. And, even if it's just I go once just to get some insight from other people who are also brave enough to show up and dig into some really tough inner work, I think it would just be expansive for not only myself, but for if you listeners are thinking about, maybe I am codependent, just do some research on it. You will get a lot of information just by doing research and then looking at your life through the lens of all the information that you just learned.
How has working on your codependency and being with yourself more transformed your life?
So it has made me, in a work and career sense, 100% put myself first. That was really the first layer of, as I said earlier, I really identified with this title and role that I had as an executive director for a nonprofit. And I feel like I kind of lost myself in it. And then, when that was taken away, I felt so incredibly lost. And like, I just didn't know, what was next. And yeah, like moving forward, I am in a new layer of healing codependency within my relationship with my partner, which I think that it's really just presented itself because I've done so much work around boundaries in the workplace and career that now it's just like glaringly obvious that, oh, those codependency tendencies are in my relationship with my significant other. And I feel like I just kind of overlooked that. But within this container of my 300-hour yoga teacher training, we all are to set an intention for what we want to get out of this. And my intention was to like actually put myself first in my relationship, which is just like, never really felt safe for me realistically. Like I have the fear if I put myself first in my relationship that my partner will leave me. So that's huge to work through. And that's my current thing I'm working through.
That is a fear so many of us have, not just about putting ourselves first, but if we grow or if we change and evolve, will this person stay in my life? And often that holds us back from allowing ourselves to change and shift, and letting things go, especially letting people go, is so hard. And you have been with your boyfriend for a long time, and I'm curious how it has felt to grow and develop in a relationship you've been with since you were so young.
I would say it's been easy, and that's how it should be. And that's, back to the whole nervous system talk of being in my sympathetic state of nervous system. I mentioned that I pick fights, and I just like apply this feeling of something being wrong to every layer of my life, or I have at least. And now that I have that awareness of that's what's going on, my nervous system is dysregulated, and I am projecting my feelings of something being wrong in my relationship. Like, having that awareness, I can draw that back and realize, like, no, I am safe. Everything has been so easy, and it's just, it's wonderful, honestly. And that's just how it should be. It should be easy. You shouldn't have like complications, and like, yes, we go through hard times and struggles, but like, back to just how our dynamic, we just work together. And I feel like pretty confident that, we've been through some shit realistically, and he hasn't left me. So that really helps to calm my nervous system of realizing, like, okay, bad things can happen, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be left behind.
I think it's so beautiful that you have developed this foundation in your relationship. And I think it's so rare because you guys have been together for how long?
It'll be 9 years in November.
9 years in November. That's a really long time. And for, we're kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, where I've really been on my own growing and having this healing journey really solo, and that it just both work and both are great. And it's just about what you need in that season of your life and what is present for you. And to have that person be by your side as you move through life, and to continue to show up and continue to show you, I'm not going to leave. Whatever happens, I'm going to be here, is so healing and magical, honestly, to have that person by your side. And that makes me think of another topic I had on my mind, which is friendships, because both of us have moved here kind of recently and met kind of recently. And it's hard to find really deep friends at an older age. Making friends when you get older is challenging. And I've felt so grateful to have met you, and friendships have held different meanings throughout my life. And more as I get older, I'm just noticing the importance of finding those friends who will stick by your side and who you can really talk to all the things about. And I'd love to hear what the meaning of friendship has meant for you recently.
I am also so grateful to have met you, Rachel. I straight up manifested you. I literally wrote out a friend manifestation list a couple months ago, and I feel like it has manifested into true life as Rachel. So I would say what friendship means to me. Rachel and I have shared this, privately, not on this podcast, but just that we've been in friendships before where it feels like the other person just has so much going on, and they just don't really like have space for anything that's happening in your life. And, it's just kind of all about them. And it's just like, for a long time, I felt like all friendships were that way. And that's just what friendships were. And as I am growing and learning and exploring friendship again, because I felt honestly closed off to like true deep friendships, especially like with women, because I just had felt like I've always had to be like the fixer, or like, showing up and like being the rock for somebody. And like I never felt like I could actually like have anything be heard because they just didn't have the space, or like it would be rude for me to even bring up things that I'm going through because that person just has so much shit going on essentially. And now I'm just really realizing like there's so much power of women coming together, especially women coming together and just empowering each other and being there for each other. And you will find your tribe. I definitely believe that. But I mean, it takes you being brave and putting yourself out there and willing to try new things and put yourself in situations where you can meet new people, because you're not going to meet new people likely just sitting at home on your couch every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I mean, yes, I did meet Rachel in an online TBM group. However, we immediately planned some gatherings together and it's been great. I mean, I really, really appreciate the type of women that I've met moving to Asheville. I mean, you probably, if you know about Asheville, you probably will understand that there's a large community of women in the healing arts here. And maybe it's the mountains that all draw us together, but it just feels truly so kismet that I've met the people that I've met. Like I know I've met them all for a reason.
I have had similar experiences with friendships in my life where, partially because I created the dynamic of I have to be the helper and the healer and of service, and I can't share what's going on with me. So I definitely played a part in this dynamic, but I often felt like I couldn't share and I couldn't be my full self. And it took me deciding that I was going to let go of relationships that no longer served me. And I also was going to show up more vulnerably and more openly and let people in and let myself be seen and share what I feel insecure about and what I feel ashamed of, and just let people see me imperfectly. And that's how I've created more connections and deeper connections. And I believe that that's why our relationship has developed in the way it has. I'm really, really grateful for that. And it's hard for people to meet you there and to be able to do that in a reciprocal way. But once you find those people, it's so worth it. And you can really find them anywhere at any time. It just takes some courage for sure. I want to switch topics a tiny bit because I want to talk a little bit about human design. I love talking about people's human design. The second I met Hailey, I was like, I need to know your birth time because I need to look up your human design. And we've talked a lot about this together, the difference in how we have handled emotions in our life and how you often can cry easily. And for me, it's been really hard for me to cry. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that is. But when it comes to human design, I have a defined emotional center and you have an open emotional center, which means that you are so much more open to other people's emotions and all the energy going on around you. And I would just love to hear about how that has been present in your life, how being emotional and feeling everyone's emotions so deeply has impacted you.
Ooh, that's a deep question. So I would say growing up, I lived among some kind of chaotic households, you know, lots of divorced, arguing parent type situations. And from a young age, I was definitely pegged as like the super emotional kid of, you know, like don't provoke Hailey, like just let her go cry and scream in her room basically. But now that I have some understanding of my open emotional center in human design and just, you know, thinking full picture here, all of that chaos and all of those big emotions from all the adults around me, I really feel like I was just picking up on all of that and expressing it because that is just what came natural to me. And then, everyone around me is like, well, what's wrong? Basically, you're so emotional all the time. And I never knew what was wrong. I just was always sad, mad, feeling all the emotions. And it was a lot. It was honestly so much at times. And honestly, that's when I first started journaling, is when I was probably like 9 or 10. Like, I was pretty young. But then this is just a little caveat of a story. I felt like I could express my emotions into my journal. I felt safe about it. And then my stepmom at the time, my dad's ex-wife now, she read my journal. And I had wrote things and feelings about her. I actually wrote, I hated her so much, I wish she was dead. And she confronted me about it. And I just felt so blindsided, and like I had no safety of exploring and feeling my emotions within me. So, I think that was a pivotal moment in my life where I just kind of shut down, and I really just internalized a lot of these emotions and tried to like tune them out, drown them out, self-soothe with, lots of good ice cream and lots of food. I definitely am an emotional eater, and that's something that I'm still working through. But it's just really interesting to, see how I was when I was younger. Kind of, I'm still, obviously I'm the same person. My human design has not changed, but I have gotten a lot better at dealing with it. And I think now I just have a lot better boundaries. And if I feel like I'm in a situation where maybe I'm just feeling like low energy, kind of vulnerable, and I'm around somebody who is projecting their emotions like onto me, around me, whatever, I will just leave the situation because it doesn't feel good to me. And I just don't have any space to like pick up on all those yucky emotions in that moment. And on the contrary, I love to be part of good emotions, when people are super happy, like I love that. I love to be happy right there along with everybody. And celebrate life. There's so much to be happy about. So it's just definitely learning your human design. And it really just helps you like have the blueprint of how your energy works. And, it's like, now that I understand, I'm like such an open, emotional person, I have that awareness that I can intentionally remove myself from situations that don't feel good, where I know I'm picking up on other people's emotions. Or if I can't physically remove myself from that situation, I can go home and like sage myself and do my own little rituals to like cut that tie of that emotion.
Having that awareness around how energy impacts you is so empowering. And for someone with an open emotional center, being able to recognize what I'm feeling probably isn't my own and probably is coming from somewhere else, and really allowing yourself to let it go. I think it can be easy to attach to those emotions, and for people with that center open to want to feel all the emotions and take that in and kind of let that be the chaos that dysregulates their nervous system. You can get addicted to that feeling, but choosing peace over that chaos is challenging, but really, really powerful, and really allows you to ground yourself and connect back to yourself versus everyone else and that everyone else's emotions and thoughts and feelings. I also have had a moment in my life where I was taught that feeling my big feelings wasn't okay, and circling back and being in this space where I just let myself feel all the feelings and express them and embody them. Really, it can feel really scary in a world that tells us that's not okay. But I can also look at my human design and be like, well, that's one of the main things I'm meant to do is express my emotions. So, and another piece of your human design, which kind of connects to what we were talking about around friendships, is this 5 in your profile. And the 5, for people who don't know, it can be an easy Your profile is kind of your archetype, your personality, and someone with a 5 in their personality is it's this save the day hero energy, and people can also often project things onto you and expect you to fix all their problems, and they see your capacity and your big energy. They want you to do all the problems that they want to fix. And it's important to come back to, what problems do I want to fix, and what do I want to work on, and what do I have the energy for? And I'm curious if you've had any more insight once you learned about this more.
Yeah, I've definitely tried to bring a lot more discernment into my life of, realizing that I'm not meant to fix everybody else's problems all the time. I feel meant to be a helper and a fixer in a way, but definitely not in like a personal capacity for all of the people in my life. That just is impossible. I can't fix everybody's problems. So really just kind of developing my own discernment of checking in with my body. I mean, literally that is what I do. Does this feel like a yes or a no to me? And I mean, when I, in general, just like learned about human design and my human design of being a sacral generator, it just removed all of the logic out of it for me, because my whole life I have been an overthinker. I will overthink myself out of situations, and it's like, no, it's either a yes or a no. If it's not a yes, it's a no, period. So how do I feel about people asking me for help, or, just maybe like hinting or wanting, or maybe I even like feel my own intuition of, I think I want to help this person. Well, then that's a yes for me, and I should go ahead and do that. But then I would say in most situations, if I check in with myself, I'm kind of like, well, I have a lot going on. I have this to do. And it's like, okay, right there, that's a no, period. I don't need to explore this any further. It's over. I'm done. I cannot help.
Exactly. We're meant to use our intuition to help us figure out what problems we do want to solve and what we do want to put our energy towards. And I was talking to my mom about something regarding my human design, and it was a different piece of my human design, but I think it relates to here in the sense that when I'm trying to put my energy towards something that my intuition is telling me no for, it's like there's a door that's closed. I'm trying to walk through the door, and then the door is just like, no, it's closed, but I'm really trying to push that door open. So honoring that feeling and acknowledging, okay, this door is closed. Like, I might think I need to move in this direction, or I'm expected to, or I've been told I should, but it's clearly a no, and accepting that. I'm curious if there is an area in your life that you would like to strengthen your intuition around.
When I was a kid, I had really strong intuition. My first remembrance of connecting with my intuition was when I was in Girl Scouts in like kindergarten. One of the girls' dads, I think it was like her mom's boyfriend, was coming around to our Girl Scout troop meetings. I think they were maybe once a week. And right away, my gut told me, he is a bad man. Like, why is there a man that's coming to a Girl Scout group? That seems weird. And I told my parents about it, and they, were kind of like, okay, interesting that she is feeling this way. And then it comes out like not that long after that, because I like had a resistance of even wanting to go to Girl Scouts anymore. And then it comes out, oh, this man is a like pedophile. He had a bunch of child pornography that he was charged with, found on his computer. And and he was like showing up to these meetings with all these young little girls. So that right there, I remember my grandma and my grandpa both telling me like, that feeling that you had, like, keep following that feeling. That's so awesome that you could like feel that in your gut, like keep going with that. But there's been, as I've said, there's been a lot of trauma and nervous system dysregulation from the trauma that has kind of clouded my intuition. And as Rachel said, I think that's the state that most people are sadly living in, and it's hard to connect to your intuition. So I think what I'm trying to do is, those moments that I do feel that intuition, I have to listen to it. Even if it doesn't make any logical sense to my brain, I think that is just in general how I can make my intuition stronger. And I mean, I would say if I had to pick any area of my life that I wanted to follow my intuition more, it would just be, I mean, altogether, yes, I want to follow my intuition on like a daily basis, but I think more along like the creative side in my life, because I have so many creative ideas, but it's like I just don't physically put them into action. And I think a lot of that has to do with my own dysregulation and, like, you know, as I said, getting into my head and overthinking and feeling that like fear response in my body where I'm like, oh, like, do I actually do this? Or I mean, actually, I'm talking this out right now. I worry about what are other people going to think? That's a huge one. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Truly, it does not matter what other people think. If I'm following my intuition, everything will be aligned and it'll all work out exactly how it's meant to. So to answer your question fully, I would like to really tune into my intuition and follow it more in the creative side of my life and just run with it.
I love that so much, especially because through so many of our conversations, you're constantly talking about creative projects you want to do and ideas you have, and it is so exciting and you're so lit up by it. And I think following through on those and the ones that you continuously feel called to and continuously feel lit up by will be really transformative for you. Absolutely. And I think you're really lucky that you had your grandparents say to you, keep following your intuition, because not a lot of people have that in their life. I think it's even more common for adults to stomp on our intuition and tell us to shut it up and ignore it. And that's how we end up with the problems we have in society today, in my opinion. What is something that you used to feel ashamed of that you've learned to embrace in your life?
I would say, okay, so 2 things I have for you. So the first one being from just in my family, there's a lot of like mental health challenges that have, been, I don't want to say passed down, but essentially they're really passed down. And I think that is one of the things that kind of like drove me toward the path that I'm on, because I was ashamed of that and I just did not want to be like them, essentially. But now that I have all of the wisdom that I do, I have definitely like moved away from that kind of shameful feeling and really just moved into a place of understanding, why those people had the struggles that they had. And I mean, a lot of this really just stems back to trauma, realistically. So yeah, in that respect, I would say I no longer feel shameful about this past of or family lineage of mental health issues. Like, I am fully here to take whatever comes my way and, do what I must with whatever I am dealt. And another thing that I would say I've felt really like shameful about is my body, my appearance. I mean, I think we can all probably relate to that. And I think I'm just really in more of a place like, yes, I still feel ashamed of my body sometimes, but I'm really just more in a space of like, who cares, how many people see me on a daily basis? Like, who am I really feeling ashamed of? Like, obviously that's like a deep feeling that I'm sure so many people before me have felt. And hopefully my own future children don't have to feel ashamed of their bodies and they can just show up as they are and be loved for it. And I think a lot of my, lack of shame about my body and my appearance and myself is the fact that I've been with a partner who's loved me through it all. As Rachel said, it is truly so healing.
Anyone who's listened to this podcast knows I've had my own journey with body image, and I guess I've talked about the food piece of my eating disorder more, but body image has definitely been a big part of that, and it's challenging. It's really hard, especially in the world we live in today. And something that does keep me going is this desire to to be confident in my body for my future children, to be able to be a role model to them, and to pass on something new, to create a new foundation, a new way of looking at ourselves, a new way of being in our bodies. And I don't think that that was modeled to me when I was younger, and I really wish it was. And I think that that is the missing piece, and not even making it about our physical body and our appearance, but about our self-worth and our embodiment, like how it feels to be in our body and to feel free and easy and comfortable and connected. And that's what keeps me going. And I think that talking about it and talking about the negative feelings that might come up around our body is how we take away the shame. So thank you for sharing. And on that note, what is something that you've learned to love about yourself?
I have learned to love my emotionalness. Like I've been tearing up pretty much this whole podcast so far, and I definitely used to be pretty ashamed and embarrassed if I would cry in front of people. And I think a lot of that comes from people around me kind of placating me and, you know, what's wrong? Are you okay? Are you okay? Like there's just such a stigma around crying in front of people or in public where it's just like, ooh, you're crazy. Are you okay? Like what's wrong? And I mean, nothing's wrong. I'll tell you that right now. I'm just a crier. I just let it flow. And that's just me. That's just who I am. And it feels pretty freeing to know that, hey, there's actually other people like me, and there's people that think it's awesome that I can just cry like this. Like, especially throughout my yoga teacher trainings, we get pretty deep with each other and talk about all kinds of things. And one thing that just keeps coming up for me is the people in my classes, like, seriously praising me for being able to cry like this, because it's been hard for them to be able to cry. And that I think that really was a shift for me of realizing, like, this is not a burden. This is a gift, man. And I am here to just step into it and utilize it for what it is and feel all the emotions and talk them all out, cry them all out, whatever I need.
It's so true. I went years without crying, and I can tell you that it's not good. It's not good. And I think there is so much strength in that softness and in being able to let it go, and also so much healing that comes with that release of crying. I have my own journey with crying specifically that I think I want to make a whole other podcast. But I remember, like, your crying is healing for me. Like, I love it. It's one of the things I love about you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that so truly. What is something you wish people talked about more, or that you wish you were able to talk about more?
I think just the wide span of emotions that people experience on, like, you know, a day-to-day basis, as well as for women. I mean, we are cyclical beings and our emotions fluctuate with our menstrual cycles. So, I mean, really just for myself personally, I have felt like there is so much like darkness and heaviness about my emotions that is just like not a common dinner table topic, you know? Like, it's hard to just tell people like, oh, I don't feel like being alive. And that's a really hard thing to talk about, and it makes other people uncomfortable. But I'm willing to bet I'm not the only one that has felt that way. And, you know, as I continue to grow and change, and I mean, I think really my move of physical locations has aided with this, but I don't feel those emotions as heavy anymore. But it really just kind of brings me to a place of like, okay, well, I don't want to just like never talk about it. I want to talk about it and like be aware of, you know, what do I do when I'm having those like really, really low days? And I mean, on the contrary too, like as low as I can feel, that's also as high and amazing as I can feel. And like, just, you know, as simple as like the change of the trees leaves right now, like that can bring me so much immense joy. And I mean, I feel like kind of a dork to be honest when I like tell people like, oh my gosh, look at the trees, they are just so beautiful. But I mean, I think just really emotions, like people, yeah, you can feel your emotions. I think for the most part, a lot of people stuff their emotions down because they don't feel safe to feel them, to express them. But I think a really good bridge to being safe to express your emotions is to talk about them. You know, we are all human beings on this earth going through the human experience. And with that comes a wide range of emotions. And I think just talking about that, it's something that has come up for me a lot lately, is just realizing that none of those emotions are permanent. They all ebb and flow. They all will pass. I mean, some of them will stick around longer than others. But I mean, you're not going to live in like a sad state your whole entire human existence. There will be highs, there will be lows, and I think it would bring people together if we talked about that more.
I couldn't agree more. And I know that I've felt this way, and I've talked to many people who felt similar, that they were so afraid to feel their emotions because they felt that it would be too overwhelming. And the truth is, it only feels so overwhelming because you're stuffing them all down. And if we just had this free ability to let our emotions out when they need to come out, we would realize that they're not so scary. It's not going to overtake us. We'll be okay. And they come and go, and there's ups and downs. And the more we talk about it and normalize it, the easier it is to feel them. And I also have it's a constant thought on my mind of worrying that sharing the depths of my emotions and how much I feel will be too much for people, and wanting to be able to share my story and speak openly without feeling like people are going to be either put off by that or wanting to comfort me, and for me to say, I'm not sharing from a place of needing validation or for you to feel sorry for me. I'm just sharing what I went through and how I felt, and I don't feel that way anymore, mainly because I talked about it and I worked through it, you know? So talking about my feelings has been probably the most healing thing for me ever. I am just so grateful for you. I mean, this podcast, everything, you can clearly tell why Hailey and I are friends. We have so much in common and we feel really similar about a lot of topics. It's been really, really special to have you here and to have this conversation with you. And I hope that you come back on for many more podcasts. And also, it's really meaningful to have a friend with you from the start. You know, for Hailey to see me dealing with the technology and figuring all the things out and talking with me through all my thoughts about the business and all this stuff. And I'm just really grateful. So thank you so much. And I'm curious if you have any last words or insights or anything you want to share before we wrap up.
Thank you, Rachel. I am also just so grateful to be here. One thing that's coming through to me, maybe I'm just like channeling this message right now, but just a practice that I didn't speak about at all that I do daily is grounding. I go put my bare feet on the ground. I walk in my yard barefoot. So, you know, when those emotions arise and you're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you're feeling just like overjoyed, go put your bare feet on the ground. Let Mother Earth absorb some of that crazy emotion from you and transmute it into something even better.
Yes, I think that's what we are going to go do right now. Go put our feet in the grass and go in the creek. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for listening, and I will see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.